Hello, my name is Michael Lambert, and today I want to talk a little bit more about the gift that keeps on taking, Brexit, and in particular I'd like to talk a little bit about the shortages, of workers, which are now affecting so many different sectors, which are particularly affecting the delivery of petrol, which has been going on now for a week or so, and which certainly in the southeast of England is not getting any better. It's getting worse, if anything. And what the attitude of the government is, and the response of the government is, and so on. I also want to talk a little bit about what I think is going to happen in terms of shortages affecting other sectors, and I also want to suggest how I think this is probably all going to be resolved in the end, because it will eventually be resolved. And I think the way that it will be resolved will not be very pleasing to the right wing of the Tory party and to people who voted for Brexit, because I think they're going to be very disappointed with what happens in the end. Now, as far as the lorry drivers are concerned, the government are insisting that this is all to do with the pandemic, and it's all to do with poor working conditions, and it's all the fault now, this is the latest line, it's all the fault of the transport companies. I mean, even the Prime Minister said the transport company haven't been investing in truck stop facilities. Well, it's nothing to do with the people who employ the lorry drivers to provide service stations for them. Anyway, a few days ago on the Today programme, there was a new minister, a guy called Simon Clarke. He's taken over from Jesse Norman at the Treasury as Financial Secretary to the Treasury, and he, despite being pressed several times, refused to accept that Brexit has any part at all in what we are seeing in terms of all the queues at the petrol stations all over the country. He says it's nothing whatsoever to do with Brexit. If we'd stayed in the EU, it would have been no different whatsoever. It would have been exactly the same. And they keep going on, as the Prime Minister does, and they're all going on about how there's a shortage of drivers everywhere. The Prime Minister even said there's a shortage of drivers in China, just to show how really we're nothing exceptional. Well, I haven't seen any films anywhere of queues of traffic in any other country, not in Germany, not in France, not in Italy, nowhere. I haven't seen any films on Twitter or anywhere else of people fighting in the forecourts, shouting and grappling and rolling on the floor and punching each other, kicking cars. I haven't seen any of that anywhere else. So the question, it really is, why is it here? Why here? Now, the response to the government, first of all, was to say they get the army involved, and then Kwasi Kwarteng tweeted a rather bizarre tweet a couple of days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, which he said, "I can confirm the government's reserve tanker fleet will be on the road this afternoon to boost deliveries of fuel to forecourts across Britain. The trucks are driven by civilians." Now, it seems that the idea was there to try and kid us all that the army were not going to be involved. We didn't need the army. It's not a disaster. It's not a crisis. It's not something that needs the army. We're going to use this government's reserve tanker fleet. Now, what is the government's reserve tanker fleet? What do they normally do? Are they just parked up waiting for a fuel crisis every 20 or 30 years? What are they for? How stupid does this man think we are? The business secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, brilliant man, never had a day's experience of business in his life. And what about this going to be driven by civilians? Why would he mention that? And then, of course, within about 12 hours, we're told the army are going to be delivering petrol. There are 200 soldiers or army personnel who are going to be involved in distributing petrol, of which only 100 are drivers. So we've got 100 army drivers who are going to start delivering petrol to some of the 10,000 or so petrol service stations throughout the country. And it's pretty clear this is going to go on for some time, and the whole driver shortage is going to go on for quite a long time. In fact, it's going to go on indefinitely. You can't really see how it can be resolved, given that 14,000 EU drivers went home. And of course the government will say they went home because of Brexit, because of the pandemic, which of course is true. They did go home for the pandemic. But when they got home, they found that to come back, it's now so difficult, so complicated, and so expensive. And when they've got dozens of other countries they can go to, 26, 27 other countries in the EU they can go to, why are they going to come back here? If you want to come here and you want to work, it doesn't matter whether you want to be working in a care home, it doesn't mean if you want to be working in the fields digging potatoes, it doesn't matter if you want to work in an abattoir or you want to drive a lorry, you have to get a job before you come here. That job has to pay £25,000 a year. When you get here, you've got to pay £700 and odd for a work visa. You've got to pay £700 and odd per year, and you have to pay your first instalment when you arrive for health insurance. And then you have to show that you've got £1,200 to cover your expenses until you get your first paycheck. So you want about £3,000 when you come here. I say you ain't going to come. Who's going to come to dig potatoes and bring £3,000 with them? It ain't going to happen. And so when you get this ridiculous idea that we're offering so generously, offering visas to the 5,000 most privileged drivers in Europe to come here and work hard, and then previously, a few weeks ago or a couple of weeks ago, they were going to have to go home on the 24th of December, and if they stayed they'd be illegal immigrants. But now that's been extended to February, of course. They're not going to come. Why should they come? So we've given these special visas for lorry drivers, and there's been another 5,500 visas for turkey pluckers. Now, why turkey pluckers? Well, it's absolutely obvious. The Prime Minister is only concerned about his own position, his own reputation, and his own advancement, his own career. He's concerned that if the shops are short of stock approaching Christmas, people are going to be very upset about it. They'll be blaming him. He's also concerned that if we don't have turkey for Christmas, that's something that people get very emotional about. Heaven knows why people want to eat this dry, tasteless meat, but everyone wants turkey for Christmas. It isn't Christmas without turkey. So he wants to make sure that there are turkeys in the shops for Christmas, and that's why it's been lorry drivers and turkey pluckers are given these visas. Now, there's another very good reason why Europeans are not going to come back. They're not going to want to come back, and it's this: that when a lot of these people from Eastern Europe, from Poland and Romania and Bulgaria, when they first came here, there was a huge difference in the salaries they could earn here and what they could earn at home. Since then, since Brexit, the value of the pound has diminished considerably, and so the value of the money they're earning is less in their own currencies if they send it, or less in euros when they send it home. And not only that, conditions have improved in their own countries, and also there are shortages in their own countries, so they can find work easily at home, where they can stay at home, live at home, and always get home at the end of the day, as opposed to coming here, where we've made them so unwelcome anyway. I mean, we have made it absolutely crystal clear to the world we do not want people from the EU coming here. Now, the crisis at the moment is lorry drivers, but there are so many other sectors. There's the care workers, there's nurses, there's doctors, there's food processing, there's food digging out the fields, there's building trade, isn't it? Bricklayers, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, all shortages. And the government says, we don't want these people coming from Europe because they undercut our wages. And what is the response, really? We had this guy Clark on the Today programme the other day saying, well, we haven't got enough drivers, but we're going to train up our own, and we're going to pay them a lot more money. That's the current mantra. Wherever there's a shortage, we're going to train up our own people and pay them more money. It's the same with the care workers and the health service. Train up our own people, pay them more money. All that producing food, digging food out the ground and processing it and all the rest of it, and animals in the abattoirs. Train up our own people, pay them more money. Building trade, train up our own people, pay them more money. Everything is training up our own people, paying them more money. Well, there are two problems with this. The first is that a lot of these jobs our own people don't want to do. our people don't want to do these really difficult, tiring jobs. For example, I saw a lady being interviewed on the television last week, and she's a care worker, and she goes around to different houses visiting old people and bath them and feed them and all the rest of it, and they go around once a day and so on. It's extremely exhausting work. And this lady was saying she was working, because of shortage of labour, she's working 4 shifts a week, and each shift is 15 hours. So she's working 60 hours a week in this really, really rather difficult and stressful job. People don't aspire to those sort of jobs. People don't want to do those sort of jobs, especially young people. They don't want to go and stand in a field in Lincolnshire up to their knees in mud in November, in the pouring rain, digging potatoes and carrots. They don't want to do it. They don't want to work in abattoirs. They don't want to work in factories cutting up chickens and packing them. These are jobs that our people do not want to be trained up to do. And this is why we've been so grateful to all these East Europeans for coming here and doing these jobs. Anyway, that's the plan. We're going to train everybody up. Now, in terms of paying everybody so much more money, I mean, it's a very easy way to solve this. What you do is you just double everybody's wages, and everybody's fine then. Everybody's got loads of money, everybody happy. Double everybody's wages tomorrow. Only thing with that is, half the firms in the country go bust because they couldn't afford the wages, and prices would double. So what does that achieve? The idea of just talking about paying more money for everything just means that everything is going to go up in price. Now, the problem we've had with the lorry drivers is going to start extending to, or we're going to see it coming to the fore in different industries. My prediction is that the next one is going to be the care homes, because there are just not enough people in the care homes, and those who are there are now rushing off their feet and all exhausted and spent. And it's the same in the health service. You've got nurses and doctors, especially after the pandemic. They're all absolutely burnt out, and a lot are leaving the health service anyway. And so it is throughout various industries. Look at the care and the hospitality industry, where they can't get people, and pubs can't open full hours, and restaurants are having to cut down, and it's just all a really struggle and an unnecessary struggle. And sooner or later this has to be resolved, or the whole economy is just going to descend into chaos. And there is a point here, which is this, that we are what is known as an aging population. In other words, we're having fewer children, so there are fewer people coming into the workforce. And at the other end, we're still retiring at 65, unless you're a London tube driver, in which case you retire at 50. And then you're retired for the next 25, 30 years, maybe longer, but many people are living into their 90s these days, during which time you're contributing virtually nothing. You're receiving a state pension, and above all, you're going to start costing a lot of money to the health service, because as you get old, you need more and more help and more medical attention. And you only have to go to any hospital and have a look at the equipment they've got these days, and you look at the cost of drugs and so on, and how advanced all these things are, and it's so patently obvious these things are getting more and more expensive. So what is happening is that the population, the proportion of the population who are working, paying taxes, spending money, paying more taxes, is shrinking, whilst the proportion of the population who are costing us money are getting bigger and bigger. And when, for example, as we did by Brexit, you send away hundreds of thousands of people who've been nicely integrated, working hard here, paying taxes for years, coming and going as the same way as we've been coming and going in Europe. When you send all those people away, you then create all these jobs that you've got no one to do, and on top of that you lose all the taxation that these people have been paying. It just makes matters considerably worse. And this problem of an aging population is something that it exists throughout Western Europe. It exists in America. It exists particularly in Japan. It exists in South Korea. And funnily enough, it's going to actually hit the Chinese fairly soon, in about 10 years' time. So how do you solve this problem of not having enough people to do the jobs, earn the money, pay the taxes to keep the economy going? Well, there's only one way, and that's immigration. Now, we've made it almost impossible for Europeans to come here in future. We've made it absolutely clear it's been a government policy to treat the EU as the enemy. So many issues still to be resolved with them, but all we do seem to do is just prevaricate and then just insult them. But we have to find these people, so where are we going to find them? We have to find immigrants. We need immigrants to come and work here and do all these jobs. The sector that's most urgent and most important in terms of all these sectors where there are shortages is the health service. Now let me tell you a couple of things. I know somebody who works in one of these food delivery companies, one of the big ones. They have all these guys going around. I don't want to mention them, but they have all these guys going around with their scooters with a box on the back with the food in it. Which you order on the internet. About 6 weeks ago, they took on 4 new employees, and they're all Filipinos. They'd only just arrived in this country, hadn't been here long, and they're now fully employed delivering food. Now, when these guys came, they brought with them their 4 wives, and between them they've got 10 children. So that's 18 new immigrants, adults and children, 18 new people. And of course the children will be educated in our state schools, and they'll all want to use the NHS and all the other social services that we provide. And they've all got right to remain indefinitely. In other words, they are effectively British citizens now. They can stay as long as they like. And how has this happened? Well, the answer is the 4 wives are nurses working in the NHS. Now, I don't know how they got recruited. I don't know if the NHS is recruiting or advertising in the Philippines. Maybe they are. But I'm pretty sure they didn't have to pay £700 medical insurance and £700 for a work visa, or they probably didn't have to show they had 1,200 quid to keep themselves going, each of them, once they arrived here. I'm pretty sure that exemptions would have made, because we need nurses desperately. Because apart from anything else, we can't get any nurses from Europe. Then let me tell you something else. Let me read you something. This is an article from it's a newspaper. It's a Nigerian newspaper called Punch. Apparently, it's a very big newspaper, and I think it's a perfectly respectable newspaper in Nigeria. This is an article dated the 22nd of September, and it says, checks on the website of the General Medical Council, the body which licenses and maintains the official register of medical practitioners in the UK, showed that the GMC licensed at least 353 Nigerian trained doctors between June and September of this year. The statistics also showed that between July last year and September, about 862 Nigerian trained doctors were licensed in the UK, licensed to work in the UK despite the COVID pandemic. Overall, 8,737 doctors who obtained their degrees in Nigeria are now working in the NHS. So that's where we're getting our doctors and nurses from poor countries. I mean, there is a moral question about whether or not it's right for a rich country such as us to go round the world poaching nurses and doctors from poor countries who've spent a lot of money training these people and then employing them here. How does that fit with training up our own people and paying them a lot of money? But you can see this is a clue as to what's going to happen, because what is going to happen is, as we face these shortages in different areas, as they become chronic, as they become really serious, for example with care workers. I mean, you can't have old people dying in their homes because they can't get a care worker. I mean, if that gets desperate, then we're going to start needing to import, to find people to come here and work in this care sector. And the same with nursing homes and so on. And so I think what you're going to see is there are going to be special dispensations whereby people can come from Pakistan or Bangladesh or Indonesia or the Philippines or Nigeria or wherever, from poor countries, can come here and work. And the whole point of taking back control of our immigration was so that we'd stop people coming and working for lower wages, people from the EU coming and working for lower wages and driving down wages. What we want to do is force wages up. So we're going to end up bringing people here from the poorest countries in the world to work here. I don't think they're going to be insisting upon the highest wages somehow. And you can see this is going to happen in all other sectors. I mean, how long is it going to be before we're looking for lorry drivers in poor countries? How long before we're looking for builders in these poor countries? What about abattoir workers and vegetable diggers and all the rest of it? And I think since there is no alternative, I mean, the two alternatives really are: we allow people to come from the EU, and that's absolutely impossible. They are the evil empire. We just simply do not want awful people like Germans and Italians and French people working in this country. Heaven forbid. We've gone through all this to stop that. And if it's not that, and if we don't start bringing people in from the third world, what is going to happen is that the economy is just going to implode. You know, we've already all experienced, most of us experienced the shortage of petrol, shortages in the shops, we're seeing it all the time. And it's really getting very, very serious. And the government will go on saying it's these problems are nothing to do with Brexit. They'll go on blaming the pandemic. They'll blame the employers in the haulage industry for the shortage of drivers. They'll blame everybody. The EU is going to get particularly blamed. And the media are backing them. They're still ahead in the polls. The media is still BBC. Even there's a journalist, the BBC's political correspondent, Adam Fleming, very nice guy. He was on his programme Newscast last week, beginning of last week, and he was saying, this is not exactly word for word, but more or less what he said. He said, and then there's the problem with the shortage of drivers. He said that's as a result of the pandemic, poor working conditions, and a little bit of Brexit. It isn't a little bit of Brexit, it's all Brexit. We are exceptional in all this chaos we have and all these shortages and all these looming shortages that we're going to have. We're exceptional because we went ahead with Brexit. Anyway, as I say, it's the gift that keeps on taking, and there are just so many problems piling up now. And we're looking at inflation. We're looking at so many people are going to be forced into poverty as a result of the ending of the £20 a week universal credit uplift, etc., and the increases in taxes and so on, which apply particularly to poor people and not to very rich people. And you just wonder where it's all going to end, but it's not going to end easily and quickly. You can be sure of that. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about this at the moment. But if you've watched this far, thank you very much for watching. And if you approve of what I've been saying, please, if you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. And until next time, bye for now.